Hello.
Stop.
It is Thursday.
Go. Start the damn show. Let's keep all this in.
Oh, fine. It's Thursday, March 14th, 2024. This is another edition of Football Today. The clown session is in session.
Yeah, they're like, don't talk before. I was like, that's going to get me to talk before.
It's the two dudes from the Talking Giants world, Bobby Skinner and Justin Penik. I am Chris Rose. Producer Mikey's here as well. Now, Skinner, I'm getting confused here. You're really throwing me off. Are we keeping the mustache? Is it going? Is it hanging on a hook like James Harden's beard is every night? What's going on with this
Listen,
thing?
I let the wind take me where I'm going, right? If I am getting ready to shower and I'm like, you know what? Instead of trimming this up, I'm just going to shave it off. Whatever the wind takes me, I go.
Penik, how would your stash look like?
I think you actually left the house for the first time this morning in probably like a week. So I think that's probably what it came down to as well.
Hey, by the way, we start with congratulations in order for the Detroit coaching staff and their front office too. Dan Campbell, Brad Holmes, they get contract extensions through 2027. Well deserved. Yeah, I don't think a lot of people were like, when Dan Campbell had his first press conference, they're like, okay, this isn't going to end well. He's not even going to make it through his first deal. And to their credit, they've changed things. They've had some amazing drafts, and everybody's played well, and everybody seems happy, which is cool. Good for them. But let's start this show once again with Kirk Cousins, who made it official at the league new year. 4 years, $180 million to go down and join the Atlanta Falcons. $100 million of that is guaranteed. Cousins said it wasn't easy for him and his family to move from Minnesota down to Atlanta, but he saw a bright future down south.
I think in Minnesota, it was trending over the last couple off seasons to be in somewhat year to year. And as we talked with Atlanta, it felt like this was a place where, if I play at the level I expect to play, that I can retire a Falcon. And that was something that really excited me, and that's certainly the goal. And you got to earn the right to do that, but that was exciting to feel like I could get that opportunity here.
Initially, it'll be winning the NFC South and, being a competitive team in the playoffs. That's initially. But by the end of this, the goal has to be Super Bowl, right? Like, they have talent. They've got, one of the better quarterbacks in the NFL. Not the best, but one of the better of like that second tier of guys. And like they need to continue to add talent. They need to add pass rush. Like, there's still things that they need to get better at, but they're a team that should be winning. They should win the NFC South this year and be competitive in the playoffs.
Yeah, I think obviously, the biggest upside is winning and competing for a Super Bowl, but I think the most realistic thing, guys, is ensuring Terry Fontenot is the right GM for this team, and this coaching staff is the right one to lead the Falcons. Because I think if Cousins and this offense does find success, you don't want Kyle Shanahan all over again, where Zach Robinson's going to go get a head coaching job, former PFF analyst, by the way. And then Ken Raheem Morris weather the storm and find another offensive play caller to keep the team afloat. Because really, Cousins is 35. How long do we think he's going to play? Yeah, can he go on a little bit of a Brady run and play until he's 40? I don't know. He's coming off the Achilles. He's already 35, like I said. I really think the most realistic goal for the Falcons is Fontenot, who's already had some decent drafts. There was already some talent when he came in here, too. Fontenot and Morris have the opportunity to prove that even if they don't win anything substantial together with Cousins, this pairing deserves to be invested in and given patience to find their long-term quarterback after Cousins. Because they have a window right now of guys that are talented and on their rookie deals. They just signed Cousins, and if they all show that they're talented and they can continue to draft well, Cousins is going to come off the books, you're going to draft the quarterback, and then you have another window to spend and do some fun things around that quarterback. That's what I think the most realistic goal is.
Yeah, I guess I would agree with Bobby in the short term. Win the division. We'll see what happens from here. But Kirk Cousins was playing his best football of his career when he got hurt last year.
He could have won MVP last year if he stayed healthy.
Could have, depending on how the Vikings did. I agree with you 100%. So to me, it's not the whole age is a number thing. I think that's a reality with this guy. Like, he was an ascending player. There was on the arc of a player's career, he certainly wasn't here. So at the very least, he was here, like maybe at the peak of his career. So I'm not worried about any of that stuff. And the way guys take care of their bodies, and the fact is that until blowing out his Achilles, Kirk Cousins was one of the most physically dependable quarterbacks we had in this league. He was there every week. And I get it. He's only won the one playoff game, and some people are saying you paid $100 million guaranteed to be guaranteed not to get to the NFC title game. Fine, you want to have fun with that? But shit, if they find some pass rushers and they utilize that 8th pick of the draft really well, or maybe turn that into extra picks because somebody wants to come up and grab a quarterback, awesome. Even better. I am rooting for the Atlanta Falcons now. And this is weird because I think Kirk Cousins went from one of those guys who he was always nice and likable and dorky and all that sort of stuff. But now, after the Netflix show, everybody's like, God damn, I can't get enough Kirk Cousins.
Well, and he's gotten better as a quarterback,
right.
You know, and from his time to Washington as he's gotten through Minnesota. He's become a better quarterback where he was hesitant on some stuff in Washington, right? Like him and Jay Gruden, you know, one of my favorite quotes ever is, you know, Cousins is like, if I did what he wanted to do, I'd throw, you know, 20 interceptions. And Jay Gruden was like, yeah, but you throw for 5,000 yards too. Like he's gotten better. You know, I think having Justin Jefferson and Stephon Diggs gave him more confidence to pull the trigger on some things. So he's gotten better with his age. You know, we've said it a bunch of times. If you're asking me for one season, who am I picking, Kirk Cousins or Dak Prescott? I'm picking Kirk Cousins. Mm-hmm. And, you know, Dak was second in MVP voting this past year. So I like where the Falcons are heading.
The only caveat to that is, I mean, you mentioned Justin Jefferson, but I think Aidan O'Connell's a good coach. Very good offensive mind, and obviously Justin Jefferson, you know, who's arguably on pace to be, you know, one of the best wide receivers.
Kevin, sorry to interrupt you. Kevin O'Connell. Aidan O'Connell is a maybe quarterback for the Ravens.
Too many names on the brain during the first week of free agency. You got to remember them all. No, Kevin O'Connell, one of the best offensive minds, one of the best coaches in the league, and Justin Jefferson, who is on pace to be one of the best wide receivers ever. So, yeah, you know, this is not to dismiss the growth that Kirk Cousins did, because you still got to be a good quarterback and do good quarterback stuff, which Kirk did. But Kirk was able to grow once you had a really good play caller come in, grow even more when he had a really good play caller come in and a really good wide receiver come in. So now, while I trust, you know, especially Robinson, what he did with Stafford last year, Stafford looked unbelievable. I thought Stafford was going to go on a little bit of a Super Bowl run, kind of like an Eli 2011 run of the team's not awesome around you, but you're just slinging it because you're a really good quarterback. That's what I thought was going to happen. So I'm excited to see what that offense kind of looks like there this year in Atlanta. Will it be as efficient, and is Robinson as good of a play caller as O'Connell?
All right, let me ask you this before we move on. Because of the amount of money that Kirk Cousins has made in his career, he'll be an easy punching bag if he doesn't kiss the Lombardi trophy. Is that going to end up being fair? Let's 30 seconds each on this, Bobby.
Is it fair if Cousins doesn't win a Super Bowl?
Is it fair for people to criticize him because he's made so much money in every stop along the way and wouldn't have gotten the ultimate prize?
In a sense that, yeah, he's not one of the elite quarterbacks in the NFL and wasn't a guy who won in the Super Bowl, even got to the Super Bowl and got paid all that money. Yeah, like he's criticism in the sense of like he's not a Hall of Famer, he's not close to a Hall of Famer type criticism, but not like a very successful career, and he's been worth the money.
You know, and how rare is it that he gets franchise tagged by Washington, you know, those years where really, like, you know, maybe I know the team didn't have a ton of success, but Washington is still looking for a quarterback now. It's kind of rare that you have a quarterback with his performances, his stats, and his, you know, the type of play that he had in Washington. It's very rare to have quarterbacks like that come off of their rookie contracts and then be a free agent. So I think he's kind of just taking advantage of Washington being a little dumb, giving him all that guaranteed money, and then, all right, I'm really young, I'm going to go to Minnesota, get a lot of guaranteed money, because how rare is it that quarterbacks that young kind of hit free agency of that caliber? And then he's kind of just reaped the benefits from there of Washington's kind of mistakes, I feel.
You know what? We have to remember that he was a 4th-round pick.
Yeah.
The year that they traded all the way up and traded multiple first-rounders to go get Robert Griffin III, who for the last 4 years has been on my TV. Like, I think it's going to be unfair. I don't expect the Falcons to win a Super Bowl. They might, but I think it's going to be unfair for us to just say because the guy earned $300 million in his career and didn't win it all, oh, he sucked. Like,
well, he didn't suck. He is what he is. What he is.
That's fine. That's fine. You know what he is? A really successful NFL quarterback, just like all the people who shit on Tony Romo. I never got that. The guy was a freaking undrafted quarterback and ended up being a pretty good player for the Dallas Cowboys. Was he great? No, but he was a pretty good quarterback. Not everybody could be amazing. But you know what he's amazing at? Making money. Holy shit, is he good at that? God, good for you, man. No team was more successful during the regular season than the Baltimore Ravens last year, and they found the perfect running back, in my opinion, in Derrick Henry. He's the new feature guy. Does this move make the Ravens the most complete team in the AFC pre-draft? Justin.
I'm going to go with no. And Bobby, I want to talk about their offensive line, but I'll stick with Derrick Henry for at least a quick second here. I love this fit, man. I love this fit. You're going to have Patrick Ricard leading the way for Derrick Henry. You put maybe the combined weight of Ricard's like this fullback tight end, just kind of weapon, sixth offensive lineman. What is he, like 260-some pounds?
No, he's 311 pounds, bro.
So you put together the weight of that line and you put together the weight of their 13 personnel and plus the running back. It's got to be the most in the NFL. Derrick Henry, yards after contact per attempt above 2 every year of his career, including last year. He still breaks tackles. Didn't miss a game last year. I know he came off the major injury the year before. Didn't miss a game last year. Got 5 attempts per game less than the previous year in 2022. So hopefully there's not as much tread on the tires. And he had a positive rushing yards over expected per attempt on 40% of his carries. So even the advanced numbers were still pretty good for Derrick Henry. Is it like he was elite, like in his prime, where he's just number one in everything? No, I wouldn't call Derrick Henry the best running back in the NFL, but he is the workhorse back that I think the Ravens have been searching for years. But Bobby, this is where I'm going to turn to you, because if you look at the depth chart, this is obviously pre-draft. Depth chart of this Ravens offensive line, the right side of it in particular, Ben Cleveland is projected to be the starting right guard right now, and you have Daniel Falele. And both of the from Minnesota. We kind of liked both of these guys pre-draft. Ben Cleveland drafted in 2021. Falele drafted in 2022. We liked both of these guys pre-draft, but they've only gotten a couple hundred snaps in their overall pro experiences so far, and the Ravens have been known for their really good offensive lines in the past. So the offensive line could look different this year if they don't address it in the draft or even if they don't address it in free agency for the rest of the offseason.
Yeah, they lost John Simpson and then Morgan
Kevin
Moses
Zeitler
to the Jets. I think they're going to look at tackle in the first round of the draft. Maybe there'll be a team that trades up, for a tackle. I think they'll address that in the draft. But as far as them being the most complete team, I still do think they are. But I do have more questions about the Ravens than most do. Like, they lost Patrick Queen and Geno Stone. They're probably going to lose Jadeveon Clowney. And it'll be interesting to see how that defense changes with the loss of Mike McDonald, right? We just assume, they'll just copy and paste, but that doesn't always work. A lot of times we see they upgrade this guy. Look at the Eagles last year, right? The Eagles lose, their coordinators and they'll just upgrade and be fine. But they fell off completely and the cornerbacks are get a little older. I do think they are the most complete team because they're still going to make some moves. And we've seen them revamp guys' careers like Jadeveon Clowney, which no one was talking about Clowney to the Ravens a ton last year.
Kyle Van Noy, too.
Yeah, but I think they are the most complete team. The only argument you can make is the Chiefs are because they have Patrick Mahomes.
They're not the most complete team. I'm going to save my answer for maybe a little bit later team I might talk about. They have lost 8 guys within the first 24 hours of the new league year.
It's a lot.
That is a lot. But no team keeps their garden more fertile with draft picks that they have stockpiled on their bench. You talked about Cleveland and Daniel Lele, who weighs almost 400 pounds on the right side. I don't know if he's going to get a shot at it. I agree with you. I think they're going to go offensive line at some point, whether it's in that first round or that second round, because the tackle position is so deep this year. But they expect guys, when they draft you in the 3rd and 4th round, to get in their culture, to know what it's like to be a pro. And then when your name is called, because what team lets dudes roll out the door and go get big money elsewhere more so than the Baltimore Ravens? They were doing it back in the Adalius Thomas days. where they let him go to New England. Everybody's like, what the hell are you doing? And then
you
year
get comp
after
picks.
year. Yeah, and year after year.
They're the comp pick kings.
That's what they are. And they've got 9 more picks this year. So I expect Eric DeCosta to keep replenishing the shelf. Shit, how about that year they had 6 fourth-round picks, right? And they got Isaiah Likely with one of those selections. And we saw how big and important he was when Mark Andrews went down with an injury. So that's the thing about them. You can't, even though I wrote the question, you can't really answer it when it comes to the Ravens because they're going to strike it rich in the draft and fill all those holes.
Yeah, it's going to be. They kind of like to hit that second wave of free agency, so they're going to be. I think they're going to be quite different before we even get to the draft, where they'll add talent. But the team that I would say is more complete would probably the Chiefs, right? They got a lot of talent on defense. They're going to add talent too on the offensive side of the ball, we would assume. And then they have Patrick Mahomes and Chris Jones and Travis Kelce still. So now I'm talking myself into the Chiefs because that defense is so good, and I like Justin's idea of Tyron Smith. I don't think they've been in on Tyron Smith, but I would love for him to go to Kansas City. But they've obviously got to address the tackle position.
Yeah, they do. You're right. Let's move on to there's always 1 or 2 moves during free agency. Like some of these things with the running backs, you're like, oh, okay, he ended up there and Saquon went to the Eagles. There was a heart-stopping move, I thought, late Wednesday afternoon when Calvin Ridley stayed in the AFC South, but he went to Tennessee for 4 years and $92 million, and $50 million of that guaranteed. Bobby, does this move smell of desperation, or do you like it that Will Levis now has Ridley and D-Hop outside?
I'm fine with it, and I do want to talk about the Jags angle of this too. I'm fine with it, right? You're trying to take advantage of the rookie QB contract, and they also don't have the benefit of the 5th-year option with Will Levis because he's a second rounder. I'm not the biggest Ridley fan. Like, I think he should be a top wide receiver 2 and not an alpha wide receiver 1. But if you pair him with Hopkins, who still does have some juice left, I think it's a good pairing. So, I mean, you got to spend your money on something. But did you realize Calvin Ridley's 29 years old already?
I couldn't believe it. When I heard that he's turning 30, I was like, what?
Yeah, but Ridley's never been my favorite player in the NFL. Again, really good. I think he should be a top-end wide receiver, too. I don't think he's someone you can rely on as your wide receiver 1. He's someone who, we talk about got that dog in him. I don't think he's got that dog in him. Right? Like, I've seen times where he will run he'll have like a first down and run backwards so I can avoid a big hit. Drops have shown up, but he is consistently very good, like an 1,000-yard receiver, getting some touchdowns. So I'm fine with this for the Titans, but they could look at this in 2 years and be like, what the hell did we just do?
Yeah, I'm excited just in the vacuum of, Will Levis has got 2 exciting name wide receivers to throw to. And for a Titans team that, doesn't necessarily have a bright future, this is a move that can't possibly hurt. Like, I think that's the thought of it in a vacuum. I really thought that Calvin Ridley was going to take off in Jacksonville because of Trevor Lawrence and, Doug Peterson. Also, you have a lot of other good-ish, wide receivers and skill position players, out there in Jacksonville. They're all kind of good-ish, where together they combine to be good, which is kind of how I describe them. They're all a little overpaid too. But I put $5 on Trevor Lawrence to win MVP last year on the DraftKings Sportsbook to win 80, and he came nowhere near that. So I was a little disappointed. I thought it was going to be the Trevor Lawrence breakout year last year. So that's in a vacuum. Like, yeah, I think Titans fans should be excited. But last year, second lowest yards per route run in his career for Calvin Ridley. The lowest of his career was the 2021 season, where he was just kind of checked out. Where this does hurt for Titans fans is I think you can look at this and say we could have given A.J. Brown $100 million a couple years ago when he was like 24 years old. Instead, you give 29-year-old Calvin Ridley almost.
I
know you can't say that. I know you can't say that. But I literally have on my notes, but it's a different regime, so I won't be too critical on that.
Right,
but
it can't be.
There was about like 6 touchdowns last year. 6 touchdowns where Calvin Ridley had them like in his hands, or they were either dropped or he just couldn't get 2 feet down. And if you watch him, it's kind of like, I don't really feel like this is Calvin Ridley's inability. I kind of feel like it's bad luck. So if Ridley comes down and gets 2 feet down or he catches some more of those touchdowns, maybe his season has like an entirely different context and talking points around him. I'm serious. It was like 6 touchdowns that were in his hands last year at some point.
Here's the deal.
The also thing with that, Justin, those are throws that Trevor Lawrence is making that Calvin or Will Levis is. Even if you like Will Levis, like those were like pinpoint throws that Will Levis isn't going to make.
Right.
All I could say is I called the Titans game on radio against the Browns last year in week 3. They should have paid me double to have to sit through that watching that offense. I cannot, listen, my job at NFL Network, I watch all the games. It's awesome. It's so much fun. There's always a game. We have the ability to shift a game and put it in the big screen where we all get the audio and we're all hyped up to see it. The Titans never make it in the big screen when they're playing offense. They never do. And that was with Derrick Henry. They have just been horrible to watch offensively. Horrible. Now, at least they're kind of interesting.
Right.
Yeah, and they'll probably go tackle with that 7th pick.
Oh, yeah.
And then Skoronski's going to play guard for them. So, you talk about them being horrible to watch offensively. A lot of that was Tannehill fell off quick, right? Like Tannehill's always been a above average quarterback. Last year, it totally went away from him. He lost all his arm talent over the offseason. So,
and then they made a good move getting Lloyd Cushenberry there in the middle because that offensive line was a mess. And I love Vrabel. I'm a big Vrabel fan. He could not get the offense right. He just couldn't. It didn't matter who they put in there. So Brian Callahan, let's see. He's going to get a shot to call the plays. He brought his pops over to work with that offensive line, arguably
which is an underrated move, as bringing his father over.
Yeah, so they're going to be better. I still think they finished 4th in that division, but at least I think their steps and they're watchable. Like not every team can be good in this league, but at least you can be watchable. Please be watchable. And the Titans have not been that way for years.
Let's talk about this from the Jags' point of view.
Yeah.
You remember when it was the Jets versus the Jags for the number 1 pick, and people were like, Trevor Lawrence, you can't go to the Jets. That'd be such a horrible situation. Well, it turned out to be quite the opposite. He is keeping that team afloat. They are so poorly run. They are late to the game on everything. They played this game with Calvin Ridley because they didn't want to give up a 2nd-round pick for him. So they let him in unrestricted free agency. They couldn't tag him because they haven't got a deal with Josh Allen done. Why has a deal not been struck with Josh Allen, a year ago? Why are they so late to this? Their drafts have been very lackluster. To me, they screwed this one up. They don't have the pedigree to say, well, yeah, we screwed this one up, but look at all these draft hits we've hit. No, they've been pretty damn bad at it. They're a team that's essentially built through free agency outside of Trevor Lawrence, and they've screwed up free agency pretty well too. Like I thought the Christian Kirk, not the Gabe Davis signing was okay with the assumption that Calvin Ridley was coming back. Now Gabe Davis is, that's a lot to put on him and Kirk. To me, they are a team that is just late, and I feel bad for Trevor Lawrence because he's really good. I think he's the new do you know ball test on your opinion on him, and I think he's keeping that team afloat even though they didn't make the playoffs.
Still have the worries about him dealing with pressure,
things
like that.
But he's still really good though, right? Like he's like if he was in a better situation, we'd be talking about him as being elite and great, and I think he's going to get there. So I do have some issues, but he's the guy keeping that team from being a 4 or 5 win team.
The thing about Gabe Davis, though, is, and his stats are pedestrian at best. I mean, there would be weeks where he would go without a target up in Buffalo. The thing that you hear from people that cover him is he is tough as shit. He will block his ass off. He's got no ego whatsoever, and you do need guys like that, and sometimes you need to pay guys like that. We have to remember that we can't talk about free agency without talking about the draft.
Yeah.
And we're talking about an amazing, supposedly, wide receiver class. So it's very possible. I understand what you're saying, Bobby, about the other stuff. I don't understand the Josh Allen. Like, that guy should be signed, sealed, delivered. it got, in my opinion, significantly tougher now that Brian Burns got the money that he did from your squad, because he's a better player than Brian Burns.
I agree. I would say so.
So this just got more difficult for them because they didn't take care of their business, which I think was your point all along. All right, we haven't really talked much Justin Fields lately. He is still a Chicago Bear. So, Justin, would Chicago's best move be to trade him before the draft is over, or keep him through training camp to see if another team's quarterback gets injured, a la the whole Teddy Bridgewater, Sam Bradford thing up in Minnesota?
We do it now, right? Like it just makes sense to do it. I wouldn't want to go into camp if I'm a Chicago Bear fan with both Caleb Williams and Justin Fields on the roster. It's already nauseating enough. If again, I just for Bears fans to suggest, they could be believing in Fields. I'm all for getting this done before the draft, and I think that's like I don't have a ton to say about it because I just feel like it's common sense that that's when it makes the most sense. You don't want Justin Fields shows up for even the spring workouts and OTAs and camp, and it's like you know that you're not going to be here. It's just bad vibes. You know that we don't want you here. You know that you're not going to be here, and you're gonna be out. Yet we still want you to kind of show up to work and stuff like that. And I guess he could not come, but that would just be kind of bad vibes for me.
Also, if I were a team, I wouldn't want to trade for a bad QB who doesn't see the field well in training camp and all right, drop in, learn my offense. Like that's what's happening is that teams aren't wanting to give up a 3rd-round pick for a QB that they don't think is good. They'll give up a 5th-round pick or a 4th-round pick, but they're not wanting to give up high draft capital for a guy who they don't think is good. And the Bears need to get over it. Like, yep, you drafted him. It sucked. Take the best offer now because it's not. I don't think it's going to get better down the road.
Right.
You have to make a decision on his 5th-year option. So if a team you got to have a team that's willing to maybe eat that money, and then you can't have that decision later on. So I just think Justin Fields is not very good. Very good talent, but not very good, and teams don't want to give up a high draft pick for that.
Smells like he's going to be Jalen Hurts' backup, doesn't it? I don't know how that financially works in Philly because I get confused on where they are with the number of guys they sign and then the number of guys they get rid of.
I checked this morning. They have like over $30 million in cap space because Jalen Hurts in 2027 or 2020 there's some weird year where Jalen Hurts has like a $97 million cap hit. I checked this morning.
Fields would be a $6 million cap hit.
Yeah, so I mean they could do that, and they would just decline the 5th-year option.
Yeah. Well, they cannot. The Bears cannot go to camp and have him there. I think maybe if Justin Fields, he might be fine with it, right? I mean, he would handle it. He's done very well, I think, in front of the microphone for the most part.
Didn't it take a little while? Wait, hold on. Didn't it take a little while for Baker to be traded from the Browns, and he just didn't show up for a little bit?
They told him not to.
Okay, so I think that's where maybe this will be headed.
So what? You don't like the way the Fields has done this, Bobby?
This offseason, fine, but he threw his offensive coordinator under the bus early in the season last year.
By the way,
and then tried to be like, why did you say that? I didn't. Why are you just taking my word? No, your words were in context, and that's what you did.
I'm talking about this thing with the whole drafting.
Oh yeah, he's been fine. He's been fine about it.
Yeah, the rest of it is whatever. But Caleb Williams, you think Caleb Williams wants to be answering questions? It's bad enough he's got to answer questions for the decades of failure of quarterbacks that he doesn't even know about in Chicago lore. Like, he's going to have to answer those silly questions. Well, what do you say about the Bears producing 2 Pro Bowl quarterbacks that they actually drafted in the last 58 years? Like, he's going to be sitting there like, what the fuck are you people talking about? And so now the legitimate question will be, hey, Justin Fields has been the starter here the last almost 3 years. Isn't that weird having him peek over your shoulder? Like, you don't want that. You do not want it. So just eat it. You can't play the Sam Bradford, Teddy Bridgewater game and say, well, maybe somebody's going to have a catastrophic, almost life-ending injury. Sorry. Those don't come along very often, thank God.
Yeah, take your L and take your 4th-round pick and draft a tight end.
And they signed Brett Ripien anyway, so major move for them. Pretty sure it was Ripien, right? It was today.
I'm not going to let you get away with that. What are you calling him? Ripien?
Yeah. Not how you say it?
Brett Rippon.
Brett Rippon.
Brett Rippon.
Come on. Family member is Super Bowl MVP.
I was right. He is in Chicago, so good for me. Ignore the way that I said his name.
Good for you, though.
Good for me.
The fact that you knew he was there is kind of disgusting, Penik. I kind of dig it.
Thank you.
So you know what? We'll call that a push.
That's right.
Great knowledge of knowing where he is. Shitty knowledge of not knowing.
Take a push.
Never
any day in
forget
blackjack.
Thursday Night Football, Brett Rippon versus Sam Darnold.
My God, yes.
Pat Shurmur's return to MetLife.
Dionte Johnson is on the move. Traded by Pittsburgh to Carolina for defensive back Dante Jackson and a swap of 7th rounders. So now you look at the Steelers wide receiver cupboard. Is it too barren for Russell Wilson to be successful, Bobby Skinner?
Yeah, well, why did they do this? Like, I really don't understand this move from the Steelers. From the Panthers' point of view, this is a really good move. You know, Dionte Johnson's a pretty damn good receiver, can separate well. Obviously has the drop issues, but, you know, that just kind of comes with the territory with him. I don't understand why the Steelers did this for basically a 6th-round pick and a solid player. I truly have. I've tried to think and understand what the point of view is here, and I can't find it.
Okay,
and
so
I'm tired of hearing
every
the wide receiver. Like at some point,
I was just about to say that. You know how many times we've mentioned this episode about they could just draft a wide receiver. They could just draft a wide receiver. Like every team we're saying this about.
It's true though. The Steelers. There has been no team better at finding receivers outside of the 1st round than the Pittsburgh Steelers. Now they're all batshit crazy, which I think is part of the problem here. You have to at least twice last year. The one game against Cincinnati. He had no interest in, and then there was one against Indianapolis. 2 plays where he was like, fuck this, I'm not blocking. Right? Or was that George Pickens against Indianapolis? I don't want to call out Dionte Johnson, but I know that his happened against Cincinnati because we showed it on the highlight show. Like, it's possible, guys, because we aren't in the locker room, that Mike Tomlin has been like, can't do it anymore.
You couldn't get something more for, like, You couldn't entice some team to give up a 3rd or 4th round pick for him?
Well, then now that's different. But you're still in the same position, which is without enough. They've got 2 receivers right now. They've got 2. It's George Pickens and it's Calvin Austin III. They just got rid of Allen Robinson. And only one of them had more than 17 catches last year. That's George Pickens. No other receiver on the roster had more than 17.
Bobby, trivia. What Giants receiver right now had 1 catch and 0 yards for the Pittsburgh Steelers last year?
Receiver right now for the Giants?
Oh, I'm going to guess.
Gunnar Olszewski.
Yes, good job.
I got it.
Trivia, new segment.
Wait, how did you beat me on that?
Because I said it first.
I was there too.
After me. Have you ever seen Jeopardy?
Hold on. I don't know. Do we have a red flag? Can I throw my challenge flag?
Throw your challenge
You can
flag.
be just like an NFL head coach and use your challenge flag the wrong way.
Chris, do you know how tall Calvin Austin is?
I believe he is 5'8".
I believe that's right, out of Memphis. So what?
Senior Bowl short king.
So wouldn't it be funny? Let's get George Pickens in here. I'm going to I don't want to jump the gun here a little too quick. Let's get really tall contested catch George Pickens in here. Let's get Mike Williams in here, who's also a really tall, good at contested catches.
Easy.
And then get Calvin Austin in here. And those are the 3 starting receivers for the Steelers next year. That'll be a really fun room.
So great, you've got a knucklehead, a guy that is too short to ride the rides at Disneyland, and a guy who plays about 3/4 a year.
That's mean.
Sorry.
I feel like that's a good segue.
Yeah, it is. Are we done with Dionte Johnson and Mike Tomlin? I guess we are. We'll move on. Mike Williams, aforementioned, cut by the Chargers, saves him $20 million in cap space. He's coming off yet another injury. God almighty, the ACL, injured it the first month. So do you think, Penik, I guess I'll start with you. Is Pittsburgh the best landing spot? It was going to be an open-ended question. What is the best landing spot? But do you think it's Pittsburgh?
It's a landing spot, and I think that's kind of how you describe Mike Williams at this point. Just because usually it's the 2 years after the ACL, right? It's the year after the ACL. he's spending this offseason recovering from it. You're not really spending this offseason strengthening your body and becoming a better football player. You're rehabbing, and that's why it's the second year that's usually you're at your top shape for a lot of these guys. But I mean, I think the Steelers are a good fit just because, like, hey, if they like these 50-50 balls, and if their offense has been really boring the last couple of years, right? Obviously, Arthur Smith is going to come in there and maybe bring some different stuff, a lot of play action, right? But this is what Russell Wilson was last year with the Broncos, and we've talked about this. It was 40% check down. So then, you have your Jalen Warren, you have your Najee Harris, you're going to get them involved in the receiving game, right? And then, some other time you're going to have play action and you're going to throw a 50-50 ball to either George Pickens or even sign Mike Williams. And he's been really good at contested catches, like for almost like 25% of his targets. Maybe that's a thing that I'm remembering just by looking at it this morning. 25% of his targets have been contested catches, and his contested catch rate's like 50% over the last couple of years. So he's pretty good at it. So I would have George Pickens, who's a tower of a wide receiver, Mike Williams, who's pretty big himself, get Russell Wilson in here and just kind of allow him to do what he did well in Denver last year, which is check it down to the running backs that you want to get the ball in their hands, right? And then also throw some 50-50 contested balls to wide receivers. That's not really a great formula in today's NFL, but I kind of want to see if it works in Pittsburgh.
Yeah, to me, there's not like a great landing spot for Mike Williams. Like, it's basically it can't be more than a 1-year deal, right? I mean, he's almost 30. He's got the injuries. The two teams I landed on that could make sense for them on a 1-year deal would be either the Bears or the Colts. The Bears, they lost Darnell Mooney to the Falcons. They're going to have a young quarterback in Caleb Williams, and have someone opposite of Caleb or opposite of DJ Moore, and then the Colts, similar situation, have him opposite of Michael Pittman Jr. And we know the Colts like the bigger guys. But again, I'm not giving him anything more than a 1-year, $10 million deal if I'm some team.
Yeah, I would agree with you on the 1-year deal. I'm going to throw this team out there knowing that they've got no cap space and they haven't done shit. But the Dallas Cowboys don't have anybody like him. They really don't. I mean, be interesting. I think it'd be fun. I think it'd be fun to see him down there. I found this quote from Tyrod Taylor, who played with him with the Chargers a few years ago, before the doctor of the Chargers went in.
Yeah, one game.
Depunctured his lung, whatever he did, deflated it. He said that 50-50 balls for Mike Williams, it's more like 70-30 or 80-20.
Oh, good for me.
Right? How nice is that for a quarterback? So maybe that could get your your punching bag, Dak Prescott. A few more touchdowns there, Bobby Skinner.
He's not my punching. Well, the Cowboys in general. I mean, here's the thing with the Cowboys, and I guess we could talk about them too and their lack of moves in free agency, because they're not going to be my punching bag in that segment. It's just, hey, have playoff success. But yeah, I don't see Mike Williams going to any team and being like, ooh, that's a really good piece, because one, you can't rely on him. He is like those guys, those type of 50-50 players don't get better with age. And I wouldn't want to lock up any long-term money into him.
No,
so
I don't think anybody's expecting it. I think we'd all be shocked if it was more than a 1-year deal for him. The one thing is that my buddy Daniel Jeremiah from NFL Network, he calls the Chargers games, and he said he is one of his favorite people that he's ever been around. That he lights up a room, good dude, everybody roots for him, treats everybody exceptionally well. Once again, at the end of the day, we're football fans. Hey, dude, go score me some touchdowns. But there is something to that. You need to be able to have that in your locker room. And for a guy who the last 2 seasons, it's been really rough for him with the injuries. By the way, every time I think of Mike Williams, I still will never get over Brandon Staley playing him in a meaningless game against the Denver Broncos where he broke his frickin' back. It's like, come on.
And a player that's already had injury issues in the past.
By the way, Belichick used to do that all the time. He'd keep Brady in when they're up 40 points against somebody. I'm sitting there going, what are we doing? Like, seriously? I know it's football and you're limited with the numbers. Like, you can't just put a new guy in at every position. But damn, When it was Mike Williams, I was like, what the hell is he doing in the game? And literally like 3 minutes later, he got hurt. My God, Rose, you moron. Sent that out there. All right, Danielle Hunter. He didn't get a long deal, just 2 years. We got some money, almost $50 million. 48 of his 49 is guaranteed. Pre-draft, where do you have the Texans ranked among the AFC hierarchy, Skinner?
This is a steal.
Yeah, it was.
You know, the only worry with Danielle Hunter in free agency was like, well, he is 29, and if you give him a 4 or 5 year deal, that could look a little ugly at the age 33 season. But to get him on a 2-year deal, with that average annual value, like if you told me you had to get him on a short term deal, you'd be hitting the $30 million per year mark. And he came in well short of that with that contract length. He's in a high sack tackle for loss guy every single season. He's a disruptor, right? He's a guy that you can line up over the center and have him go in, right? The Vikings, Flores freestyled with him a little bit. Then you pair him with Will Anderson, who's only going to get better, Danico Autry, and then they also traded for what's his face?
From
the
where?
Who?
From where?
The defensive tackle they just traded for.
He's got 2 Fs as his.
Anyways, that
Florensu.
defense is going to be fun to watch, right? And we know that D'Amico Ryans has that team well coached. They can stop the run. I'm excited for them to add talent through this draft. They had a very good draft last year, adding Will Anderson and CJ Stroud at the top, and then Tank Dell. I think they're battling for third, right? Like you have the Chiefs would be number 1, Ravens number 2, but I think they're like even can compete with the Ravens, even though the Ravens smoked them in the playoffs. Another year into this with the Bills, with the Bengals. Like I think they're right there competing with those cats.
Yeah, I definitely want to see them continue to add like interior depth because I rewatched every snap of Nick Bosa's 2022 season, and that's when Ryans was still the defense coordinator. And what they did and what D'Amico Ryans does, and his defense that I think is better than any other team in the NFL, is the twists and the stunts that he runs. And now that you have Autry, who's just a big dude, Will Anderson, who's athletic and strong, and he's training with Myles Garrett this offseason, and you add Danielle Hunter, not only are these guys just naturally gifted pass rushers, but you're going to have these athletes just running all over. They're hopefully going to be on the field at the same time. That's a little like Steve Spagnuolo, like, the NASCAR package of getting speed out there on the field as well. So I am really, really excited for that front. Maybe even add another interior guy in the draft. I mean, make a strength even more of a strength. And obviously we saw Christian Harris in the playoffs really, really take over and have some really good moments too. So that kind of front 7 is really, really fun.
Yeah, it's not going to shock me, man, if they're playing in the AFC Championship game next year. It's just not. They're in an interesting division, right? Jacksonville won it the year before. Colts, they won against the Texans in the last week of the year. They were going to be a playoff team. But it's not the AFC North, right? It definitely isn't. So Baltimore could get beat up a little bit in there, depending on what happens. You never know. The fact that they aced the quarterback exam out of the gate. I mean, aced it. That dude killed it. It wasn't just that he was good. He didn't turn the frickin' ball over. He did not. He put together game-winning drives against competent defenses when he needed to. I'm buying, man.
Yeah.
I am buying. I am in. I'm riding the hot hand with them. They picked up a nice linebacker in Azeez Al-Shaair, which I thought was really important because they lost Blake Cashman up to Minnesota. And then they're keep reaping the rewards of the Deshaun Watson trade, right? They end up dealing their pick last year to Arizona in order to trade up and go get Will Anderson. Everybody's like, what are you doing? Like the Cardinals are going to have the first 2 picks in the draft. Nope, they end up winning the division. They still have a first rounder thanks to the Watson deal, and they've got an additional 4th rounder. So they're sitting pretty, man.
Yeah.
God, they're good. God, they're good.
And they have a lot of money, Chris. But
they
they're not outrageously spending it though. And I think that's one of the keys where usually, like, listen, it's fun to spend in free agency, it's fun to add these guys, but even though they're a team with a lot of money, it's like, hey, build through the draft, supplement through free agency. That's what you hear a lot of these organizations say. They could go out there and overpay guys and They could front load contracts, but you see even a lot of teams, like we're going to talk about a team that's next. They have a ton of cap space now, but they're backloading contracts for some reason. But they're not doing that. They're going to stay to their plan. They made their little splash with Danielle Hunter, which is a steal. Made some other smaller moves, built through the draft. They have the draft capital, and they're going to do what they're going to do. Very excited for the Texans.
By the way, shout out Nick Casario, same high school as me.
Oh,
go University School Preppers. That was our nickname, the Preppers.
The Preppers? My college's name was the Olies.
What about you, Penik?
I was a Hawk. I was a St. Joseph's University Hawk.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Love that one. All right.
My conference was the St. Thomas Tommies, the St. Olaf Olies, the St. John's Johnnies, the Carlton Carls, the St. Augustine Aggies, and it was
That's
like
crazy.
The Concordia Cobbers.
That's crazy.
That's annoying.
Oh yeah, when I first committed there, because they have a lion mascot, I would just say we're the Lions.
Olies. Okay, Oli the goalie. Let's do this one a little quicker. Washington added future Hall of Famer and linebacker Bobby Wagner. It capped up a crazy 24 hours of spending. With all the moves they've made and the fact that they are going to try and get their franchise quarterback with the number 2 overall pick in the draft, just like the Houston Texans did last year, where they hit it right. Is there any shot whatsoever, Penik, that the Commanders are this year's Texans?
No. I mean, they've signed veterans, but like if you want to rebuild, and especially if you compare it to the Houston Texans that we just talked about, that they have guys that are on their rookie deals that are here, that are cheap. They're signing veterans for 1 to 2 years, and even the Dorrance Armstrong contract, they have money now. Why are they backloading it? His biggest cap hit is like in 2026, and there's a void year in 2027. I really don't say. I know what the approach is. Maybe, hey, let's just get by as we build through the draft. Sure, if that's the approach, but they can't expect to accomplish anything major. Like I think they're going to finish 4th in the NFC East this year.
But by the way, with the cap stuff, there is a possibility it continues to grow. Maybe not 30 million every year like it did this year, but you can also roll over. So if you don't use all your cap space, you can roll over.
Yeah, I just don't think it's a good process. Like, what you have all this money now.
Why are they signing all these old players?
Yeah, that's also like. Are you just
because
trying to get by?
Their team stunk. Yeah. Like, what? I like Dorrance Armstrong. I think that.
Yeah, that's a nice signing, but at the end of the day, he was a backup on the Cowboys. Frankie Louvu's a good player, so like, I'm not saying like, oh, every move stinks, but
Jeremy Chin on a 1-year deal. Why not?
Why not get Jeremy Chin in on like a 3-year deal? Like, he could be a good player and have his career revamped. Like, I still think there's good talent there.
I agree. And Dan Quinn has done some good stuff with some safeties in the past too. So why not? And I really like Jeremy.
Also, why aren't they the team that's spending the most on offensive line? Like, they should be doing what the Panthers did of spending all the money on the offensive line, because they were horrendous last year. They're not going to hit that in the first round. Like, they're the team that should be spending money, like, not just good deals. Like, they should be spending big money on that offensive line.
Yeah, there was two guards, and they got Biotish, who I never liked him out of Dallas. So
yeah, like he's a solid player, but like, what was the contract they gave Biotish?
3 years, 30 something.
3 for 30.
Yeah, like that's not a bad deal, right? But they should be spending big money. The other guy they got was the Allegretti from the Chiefs guy, right? The guy who came in the Super Bowl. Like, that's fun story, but that's not changing your offensive line. And they have issues at the tackle spot.
And Bobby, but I'll tell you what teams should be doing right now, since they signed Biotish. What's Ricky Stromberg doing? What do you think about him?
Didn't he get some guards like play last year? Like, he was always going to be someone. I like Ricky Stromberg a lot. He's always going to be someone who needed a year or two. So, but that's a 3rd round pick invested in last year. Like, where's he going to play? Are they going to put him?
You want a 5th? You want a 5th round pick? Give you a 5th round pick for Ricky Stromberg.
Stop. But they do have 2 2s and 2 3s in addition to the number 2 overall pick. So Adam Peters in his first draft. We'll see.
They could draft another backup center.
I'm going to root for the Commanders now that they have changed ownership. Like they went from the least likable team to at least somebody we're okay. Go get them, guys.
We'll see. You know that Panthers changed ownership, and then now they have the worst in the NFL. So
yeah, but I think this guy's pretty solid from what all indications. Dallas. Let's see. 2 moves. They got Eric Kendricks, who changed his mind at the last minute to go from the Niners to the Cowboys, and re-up the long snapper. So I ask you this, Bobby, is everybody making too big a deal about the Cowboys offseason just because they're the Cowboys?
Well, the reason they've done it is because they've spent they've done this like the last 2 years where it's like Thursday and the Cowboys haven't signed any free agents. They are the best at drafting and developing talent. And then if we'll let guys like Tyler Biadasz walk and we replace those guys, I wouldn't worry about them at all. I think the interesting part of this is that they don't want to touch Dak Prescott's contract. That's the interesting angle on this, is that are they planning a path out of that contract? Because if they weren't, right, and if they're like, hey, is Dak the best quarterback in the NFL? No, but we want to keep him. Like that would be move number one, is like, let's extend Dak and get that contract let's get that contract in place, because right now he's on pace for his cap hit this year is $60 million, and then he has a $36 million cap hit next year for a void season.
Yeah. I mean, they have $3 million in cap space right now. But I mean, where I come from it is, as a fan, if John Mara told me, we're all in, and we're going to do whatever is necessary, and doing whatever is necessary, and I think we talked about this a couple weeks ago. I don't know when I was on, but I remember mentioning this. Being all in is pushing money down the road. And being all in would be lowering Dak Prescott's cap hit this year, regardless of whether you want to keep him or not. You can't be all in and then have questions on if you have the quarterback of the future. So that's where I get a little mad, where it's like Jerry Jones just puts his foot in his mouth. And for a fan base that is so passionate as the Dallas Cowboys, and a fan base that has been disappointed year in and year out, when you have your owners say that you are all in, that we're going to do whatever is necessary, and I'm in, and hey, I'm older, and I want to win, like I'm getting impatient, yet it's a patient approach. That's the thing that I understand where Cowboy fans are coming from. We're like, this is not all in. This is the opposite of all in.
But I don't think they should be spending in free agency anyways. Like they don't have a roster that needs to spend money in free agency.
Mm-hmm. Well, that was the rumor at the Combine, was that the Cowboys are like, listen, we spent all this money on you guys. How about you guys do something? Like, we think we've supplied a pretty good team. And I got to be honest with you, it's kind of hard. They're not a flawless roster, but it's a pretty good roster.
Yeah.
So the guys who are there need to play better when the bright lights are on. And I don't have a problem with that. I mean, you can't just keep throwing bad money on top of bad money. It doesn't make any sense. At some point, it's incumbent on the players to turn what might have been an okay contract or a bad contract into a good contract and then an okay contract. We have to do that.
Yeah.
But there's no question that the MVP of the offseason is a comma. Thank you very much. Holy smokes. What was it?
What?
I'll say it. I'm willing to say it. All in, comma, my ass.
Oh, Skip Bayless. Oh, okay.
It really was. It was amazing. And the best part was my man, Maurice Jones-Drew.
Yeah. Quote tweeted it with the same screenshot of when he had the face on when you said it.
That's right.
Some are calling that the most important comma in human history.
I'm not going to go that far because, Skip is going to think that he recreated mankind. All right, let's get out of here. One good signing that we haven't talked about. We'll go around the horn here. Penik, you can start, Bobby, and then I'll.
If you steal mine, Justin, I'm going to stab you.
Well, no, I'm going to pivot a little bit because he'll find a way. I kind of want to expand off of number 9, and because I told you guys in text, like maybe think of a team that's like underwhelmed you, and then like a team that's like, that's had a good free agency. The team that should be deserving the hate that the Cowboys are getting are the New York Jets. The New York Jets have already been irresponsible. Just I think you got to get Rodgers, and no matter what, and win at any cost, right? If there is a team that should be irresponsible with their money, with their picks, with everything, it is the New York Jets. Joe Douglas, there is no need to protect this franchise because if Rodgers fails and this season fails, they're all gone. They're all gone. Go all in. Push money down the line. Sign Mike Williams. Sign, sign Odell. You wanted to last year.
No. That's done. They've signed John Simpson. They traded for Morgan Moses, and they're trying to get Tyron Smith. They're trying to fix that offensive line.
They need to get Tyron Smith. That's where I was going to really go. Tyron Smith, while it's a risk because he's been hurt in the past, Tyron Smith needs to be a New York Jet, and he needed to be a New York Jet yesterday. I think they tried to get Jonah Williams, but Tyron Smith needs to be a New York Jet. That is the one team, because they've, I don't really like Rodgers. I don't really think it's going to be good. But if there is one team that needs to be irresponsible because all of their jobs are on the line, it is the New York Jets. And that's my little tangent.
All right. Well, so you didn't want to answer the question?
I will answer the question. We didn't talk about Bryce Huff when that happened. And damn. I feel like that contract is a little bit of a steal too. Seeing that contract, and I'm saying to myself, hey, I think maybe the Jets should have matched that. They have the depth. Look at this. Look at this. This is just the edge rusher room, by the way, that the Eagles have right now. Hassan Reddick, Bryce Huff, Brandon Graham, Josh Sweat, Nolan Smith, and Julian Okwara. That is crazy depth. Now, I think Reddick or Sweat, one or both of them will be traded, but that may be, along with Jalen Carter's in the interior, that may be one of the deepest edge rooms ever put together. Ever. If you were to just leave it like that. Like that some of those guys are number twos on maybe half the teams in the NFL. Even if they're not like number one. If not number one.
Mine would be the Bengals getting Geno Stone and Von Bell, two safeties. They gave up the most explosive plays in the NFL last year. You give Lou Anarumo guys to work with. Hopefully Dax Hill, their first rounder a couple years ago out of Michigan, who I really like, grows. They need to stop those big plays from happening. I think those are two underrated signings to give Lou Anarumo to make sure that the back end is not, having blown coverages and stuff with the young guys they had of Jordan Battle and Dax Hill.
Yeah, that's the thing. They've gone so young back there in recent years, and there's a lot of talent. There's a lot to like, but now you bring back Von Bell, who was a guy leadership-wise meant so much to them. This is a guy we mentioned at the conclusion of our previous show. Darnell Mooney going down to Atlanta, I think it's going to be enormous for him. In 2021, he had a great year. He had 81 catches, more than 1,000 yards. And we were like, okay, this guy seems fun. And then last year, you guys want to guess how many catches he had?
37.
My first thought was 42.
31. He only missed 2 games. I mean, Justin Fields is not a guy. He's basically one read and go. And that's it. And Darnell Mooney wasn't going to be the one read a lot of the time when DJ Moore was around. So Kirk Cousins will find you on the backside of this play. He's going to find you. So he's going to at least double his output. And I just like it. I mean, I know it's a lot. What did he get? 3 for 39? But fine. Who cares? Go be a good player. I want to see that Atlanta offense.
Yeah.
Not under Arthur Smith.
Yeah, I'm excited for it.
Yep. Fun few days in the NFL.
Breaking news.
God almighty. What?
Don't do this. You're
RFK Jr. is having Aaron Robinson as his vice president.
Aaron Rodgers or
Yeah,
Aaron Robinson?
You just said Aaron Robinson.
Aaron Rodgers.
Is that the Giants cornerback or the Giants tight end from like 10 years ago?
No, that hasn't happened yet, but Rodgers did make a statement. What a loon that guy is.
What did he say?
What did he say?
Well, it's about the report that came out yesterday. Do you guys want to touch that at all?
I do. I just want to hear what he has to say.
As I'm on the record saying in the past, what happened in Sandy Hook was an absolute tragedy.
Nope. Stop.
Yeah,
Cut it out.
I mean, he denies it, but
all right.
What a asshole and lunatic that guy
Not
is.
going down that road.
Oh my God.
I guess we
Here's what we don't have to talk about his quote. What we do have to talk about is him going on the record and saying all the bullshit needs to be out of the building. But what he's doing is bringing it back in.
He sucks.
And I'm sorry, if I were a teammate of his, I would be like, look, motherfucker.
And they all love him. They all praise him. The media goes soft on him. The New York media. He's an asshole. Like he is a legitimate asshole, right? He just did a podcast. I can't remember his name, but it's like basically a conspiracy theory podcast and hit every single one of them. So it's like the people who like to go, oh, well, it's coming from this. You believe that? Yes, I do. Someone went on the record, sourced up, saying this happened with me. How could you think that is not true at this point? I think. And everyone's like, well, he's not going to actually do the VP thing. I don't think that's crazy. What makes us believe that he wouldn't try and do something like that? He sucks. He's an asshole, and this is a nightmare for the New York Jets.
I'll look at it this way. I don't care what you believe. I really do. Now,
I care what you believe with the Sandy Hook stuff. There were this other stuff I don't care
disgusting. About. It is disgusting. I'm with you 1,000%. He's trying to say, well, I never said it didn't happen. How the events played out is a different story. That's his claim. Whatever. You want to go live in that world, go live in it. The point is that he's coming out and saying one thing at the beginning of 2024 that we need to cut out all the BS and all that sort of stuff.
He's the source
and you know what's
of
going to happen? Here's what's going to happen. He's going to show up for minicamp. People are going to ask him about all this stuff, and he's going to be like, why are you asking me about it? Like, he's the one drawing the attention.
Yeah, he loves it, too.
He's bringing it all in the building.
He loves it.
He's bringing it all in the building.
Anyone denying it at this point is ludicrous, and the Jets need to stop pandering to him. Like we talked about it as like, oh, that's fun, he's coming back. That was bullshit last year. The whole I'm coming back, I'm going to come back. It was like you don't have to look any further than that to look at how this guy is an egomaniac. To instead of like trying to rally behind the Jets and stuff, nope, I might come back. He was never coming back. We knew it all along. He just wanted to say he could come back and take a roster spot. I used to kind of hate the way that people would treat him over, stupid stuff like, okay, whatever. He doesn't want to get vaccinated. I genuinely don't care about a quarterback not wanting to get vaccinated. Neither did Kirk Cousins, neither did Lamar. I don't care. But like it's gone so far to where this guy has went full blown. Like and it hurts the Jets. It hurts the Jets for him to be doing all this stuff. Like even entertaining being the vice president, like that's gonna get out. Obviously, like he is. I've went from like almost a defender to just like I can't stand this guy anymore.
They need to go down. Joe Douglas and Robert Saleh go down with the ship. Just do whatever. I don't think this is going to work, so they might as well just try and get all these good players to come in here.
Isn't going to fix him, Justin.
I know. Well, they can't.
A football issue anymore. You know what he's become? He has become Ben Roethlisberger at the end of his career, from the standpoint of every year. Roethlisberger was like, I don't know if I'm going to come back. He had freaking in his wardrobe different high ankle sprain boots that he could put on at every press conference just so he could be the center of attention. And this is what Rodgers does. He loves it. I'll go be on Jeopardy. I'll go do the ayahuasca thing. I'm going to go hang out in a retreat. I'm going to go on McAfee. Fine, go do all that stuff. But then don't turn it around and blame it on everybody else. You're twisting my words. You're saying I'm bringing negative energy into the building when I'm not. All that sort of stuff. But I'm sure the New York media will just let him go. Whatever.
The local media does. They're so soft on him. They didn't even touch that stuff yesterday. Now he made a statement, so they just quote tweeted and being like Aaron Rodgers' statement. Other breaking news. I know this isn't the biggest move ever. Cardinals are sending wide receiver Rondale Moore to Atlanta for Desmond Ridder. So Ridder gets out of Atlanta after Raheem Morris shitted on him. And Rondale Moore, he's like a fun little piece. He's not anything you can rely on, but he is a fun little piece for that offense.
I agree. Zach Robinson probably is like, hey, I can figure out a way to use you.
Explosives.
Piece, man. Stop it. Stop that. A nice man. Good Cleveland guy. Stop. All right, this was fun until the last few minutes.
Yeah, I'm sorry for bringing that up, but it was just like...
but it makes sense. Listen,
I feel like the NFL world had been ignoring it for 24 hours.
You know why? Because we're afraid to say stuff, and then you get labeled this, that, the other thing for having an opinion about his opinion. Really, that's what happens.
Well, and because cable political news is like extremely biased, that like if you say CNN or Fox News, you just get
get
filled
put in a
with
link.
like, you believe that, and it's like, no, I believe a person saying this happened to me, a journalist. I do believe that, even though I don't care about their opinions on, polls and all that shit.
Right.
Who you guys voting for?
All right, guys, I'm voting that we do this show again next Monday. That's what I'm voting for. This was fun, always. What do you got there?
That's
Bobby
who I voted
Skinner.
for last cycle.
Bobby Skinner, Justin Penik, moving America downfield, 2020. I have to change the 0 to a 4.
Is that a candle?
This is a candle where I have a bunch of different stickers on it.
I may
Is
vote
there
for
any
Kadarius
wick
Toney.
left in it? Is there any wick left in it?
No, there's a screw in there.
All right, Penik. I got to get out.
You know what that is, because I've done that before. He was playing with, he had the candle, he was being fidgety, and he was taking the screw and like screwing it into the wax. That's 100% what you're doing, right?
That's okay.
No.
Nothing wrong with that. You're fidgety. I am too. That's why we
Look
get
at me.
along
I've been
so
holding
well.
this, the screwdriver for the entire show.
For God's, can you get rid of that? That might be a murder weapon.
Well, I
All right.
threatened to stab Justin if he picked the Bengals.
Enough. For producer Mikey, thank you so much for putting this thing together. And the dudes from the Talking Giants world, Penik and Skinner. I am Chris Rose. We will see you Monday here on Football Today.